Welcome back to meeting room 3 from Madrid platform. Now, last lap before lunch break regarding one of my favorite technologies that is really groundbreaking. That is processing of natural language. We're going to be hearing about how this is organizing language and communication. And to that end, we will be listening to Ramon Franco, founder and CEO of Mr. Houston. He will be talking about natural language processing, text classification and ideas, concept analysis, and how this impacts news in the companies. So welcome. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'll briefly introduce Mr. Houston. That's a technology company with various fields, web management, network security, that are well-known topics. And today we will be talking about software and more specifically artificial intelligence, AI. They asked us to set up a speech on artificial intelligence, and they wanted us to explain what we're doing regarding the understanding of text quantities, mass of text, and then from there on to be able to gauge the impact that is going to have on companies. And today I would like to explain how we have approached this challenge. In AI matters, in our company, we're dealing with natural language processing, NLP. I'll briefly explain in a nutshell. NLP tries to understand how people communicate, how people translate, convey ideas and messages. But this needs to be translated to the field of machines. And in doing that, you come to realize how extremely complex human communication is. When we talk, we don't really become aware of the complexity. But if you then have to analyze it and translate it, it becomes a very uphill struggle. So this is what we're dealing with currently and what we're going to try and explain today. First, when trying to approach this idea, let me say that we have a statistical and mathematical approach, not a semantic or linguistic approach. We approach a text through statistical, mathematical algorithms that are language independent. And I do think this is a major step forward. Maybe I have sped ahead too quickly. What are we trying to do? We have a given mass of text, a documentary database, and I'm speaking about text because this is what we mainly deal with. But then people also ask us, what if I send you a YouTube video or images, pictures? What then? In that case, we have to go through an intermediate or rather previous step, that is to translate this video to text format. And how do we do that? Well, with speech-to-text technology, we listen to what is said during the video and we translate it into text format. But for us, most important is that we need to understand a text. We have a given text volume, a text mass, and from there on, we need to understand and classify by topics that are contained in the text. And that is another major step forward, because previously the idea when trying to understand a text dealt with single words contained in the text. But for people who are already knowledgeable in natural language processing, NLP, it is very clear that isolated words need a context to be able to convey the message. You need to know how these words relate to words in its surrounding to be able to understand the message. For instance, if the word window appears in the text, you might assume that we're talking about windows with glasses, windows sector in industry. But if window means a window of action or opportunity, then you realize that we're not talking about glass, but about a given opportunity, a potential to do something. And why is that? Because a word is understood within a context. So we do classify these text masses, and we classify by topics in English, by ideas, whereby we classify the texts. So we try to understand what these text masses are about. And as I said, we have a statistical approach, not linguistic, mind you. So we can deal with the text in any given language. When the machine is dealing with this text, the machine doesn't mind if the text arrives in Italian or English or any other language, because the classification is going to be run along purely statistical criteria. So a mass of text arrives at the machine without any kind of previous interpretation, categorization, no previous dictionary. And this is where the NLP algorithm steps into the picture and classifies the topics contained in these texts. So we first set up topic clusters, and then we increase the specificity and become more concrete in order to know what kind of topic related to corporate realities we're dealing with. So we have this classification by topics, and we take a number of documents, a set of documents in any possible language. We do process it and extract a number of topics, of ideas from that text mass. Because hundreds, thousands of documents come in, and from there on, we classify a number of topics in our database. And then we take a specific document to try and understand what kind of topics are contained in this document. Usually, there is a general topic and then secondary topics. So we allot a percentage, where we would say about 70% of the text deals with politics, with medicine, or with other matters, like the stock exchange, for example. And then there are other secondary topics where we might want to delve into deeper, as and when. Moving on to the next slide. These are language sources. For example, the press, or the social media. So as I said, the press, obviously, in any language. And then maybe, for example, we have a lawyer's firm that is much more interested in intranet information, in their serve point, in their documentary database, and that is the information that they want to have analyzed, because maybe they have millions of documents. They want to know who, when, and where, and how much is talking about a given topic. Now, first, we have the sources that we integrate and link up with the software solution that we have developed. And then we turn to the modeling stage, where we reprocess the data, we restructure, and we analyze the information. And finally, we have a visualization layer that I'm going to present you with in a moment. And there we can gauge the degree of impact in different areas, for example, sales or hotel reservations or visits to a given web page. So we have the cause, the trigger, and then at the other end we have the business model. So we do describe the methodology on this slide. First, how do we source the information, data acquisition, and then we have data mining or text mining by these, in case of mass analysis of data. We do a bit of cleaning up, and then in comes the NLP stage with the classification by topics. We have also a sentiment analysis that we add when we're dealing with social media, in order to be able to realize whether there is a positive or negative connotation to what is being said. And then at the end of the day, we extract the impact. And that is important for companies that have given structures when dealing with information, and they want to put it to a given use. Here we have somewhat more complex models. For example, in the social media field, we have libraries and analyses of NLP that differ from a, let's say, normal text. They demand a little bit different analysis, because in the social media, people talk in a different way. And the rules, the linguistic, so the language rules applied are somewhat different, and therefore the analysis has to be correspondingly different. And we can do that. Furthermore, an interesting idea is to understand what is being said in corporate mails. This has a legal impact, obviously, that companies need to look into, because you do need prior authorization from the users of these mails if you want to look into them. So, all of this is very much in terms of presentation. I'll give you a very quick overview of a tool. This afternoon we will be presenting our products more specifically. This morning we're trying just to explain our mathematical approach to the issue at hand. So how can we provide solutions in real-life cases? For example, calculation of reputational risk, for example. Big companies or regulated companies in the financial sector, for example, used to ask us, how can I calculate how news do impact my goodwill, my reputation. And why this interest? Because they had to provide, to earmark a given amount according to the regulator, for example, the BCE or national regulators, as a reserve for given reputational risks. So if there is a piece of negative news in the press that impacts my company, how can I gauge that? How can I give it an order of magnitude? So that's what we wanted to calculate with a given approach, and we will have a more detailed event this afternoon on the product. So I can skim through the news and the impact by topic, by idea, in the social media, for example, or in print media, and then we can translate this to a given movement of an index, for example, in sales. But these are private indices that are not going to be published or handed out easily by a major corporation, obviously. So we decided on using a publicly available economic magnitude. For example, your value on the stock exchange, for example. We can then, on the basis of the evolution of the share value, I can from there on deduce or how this impacts the reputation of a company. You may say that that is not the only index or even the best index that you might use in order to correlate a given piece of news and a company. All right, maybe that's true, but at least that's something to start with. And we might add this first step to other indices that the company might provide to gauge the reputational risk, for example. Let's say there is a hotel. I'm going to skim through the information in social media or globally even to see how we're doing in terms of hotel reservations. And there I might have a correlation between cause and effect. So this feeds back into what I already explained on this topic. Furthermore, we've been asked to analyze the following developments. In the printed press or in the press in general, and specific fields of press, very specific news. Once we have classified that, I want to organize this in such a way that if a given topic flags up, I'm going to receive a signal. For example, let's say that we have a company that sells shampoo, and that company is interested in news about clean hair or hair hygiene, and maybe they want to zoom into the sentiment that is comprised here. And if these two triggers appear, then we want to intervene. So that is what we do. We interpret the news by topic, never by word, so always with a richer layer on top. And from there on, we can create banner strategies. And that's what I just explained in this slide.
And another series of cases that we've been requested to treat. Well, here there's actually one that was not included, but was very interesting for the regional elections. So it's a political analysis. Why don't we try to understand in this mass of text from the media and from social media what subject is being discussed and how it could be interpreted from a political perspective? Well, here again, we need that very famous econometric index, or this timeline on which we could correlate the information that comes out and its impact. What index could we use in this case? Well, evidently, surveys. But the problem of surveys is that we need them to be pretty much daily to create an impact amongst them. And these surveys are not made public. They are handled by political parties at a private level. There could be daily surveys, and we actually made a calculation, for example, in the US, with the last elections, where Trump and Biden competed. There were daily surveys, and we could see a correlation on, for example, specific topics that each of them mentioned, how that could have an impact in the positive or negative assessment of each of the candidates. Again, this could be another case where our approach could be useful. Well, now, very quickly, I would like you to see is how we deal with this from a visual perspective. Wait, I think it's already prepared. Oh, I have to go back, I think. Okay, so here we go. What we have here, I don't know if you can see it properly, because you need to look at this a bit closely. On the left-hand side, we have all the classification by topics of a text database, and we've taken the newspapers ABC, La Vanguardia, among others, and the information supplier will ask us to purchase this information. This is a supplier called X. They provide all media, the press, national and internationally. This information, of course, is not available for free. We need to purchase it. So we connected to 4 newspapers. And here on the left, we have classified all the topics. And the machine, subject 1, which is affect Spain, topic 2, municipal taxes. There is a tag, an identifying tag, based on the words that were deemed more relevant. Municipal or local taxes. We could come to the conclusion that they are talking about taxes. There is the word tax, tariff, local, municipal. So there's a topic that is connected to number 2, which is municipalism. If we go down, based on each of the topics that we want to see on the left-hand side, this will identify in the series throughout the timeline that we've chosen in the second half of the year when it appears. And for example, here we see that in October, this topic came up a lot, probably because it's municipal taxes and because for whatever reason these were relevant. And I'm interested, for example, in using this for newspapers or just one of them and analyze them. And when I choose one of them, on the lower part, I can see all the articles on a specific day where this topic has been mentioned. For example, we see here, PSOE is left alone on the municipal taxes. So Vox and the PP voted against these taxes. So here we have on the left all the topics. To the right, we have their appearance according to a timeline, and in the bottom part of the page, we have the specific document where those tags were found. This would be the first part, classification of information or NLP based on topics. Then, if we go to to the impact, here we see if we make a new ranking or classification, we see a window where we see all the topics that we've found within the mass of text that we've focused on. In this case, instead of general press, we decided to use specialized press or financial media, either national or international. We organize a ranking or classification of all the information based on all the topics that appear here. Here we have a topic that is called software, net interest software, Deputy Governor of the Bank of Spain, and other words, and it explains why and where and when these words appear more frequently. Right now, I'm just showing one window of a concept that I showed you before, classification of information based on topics, the moment this information appeared, and of course, on the bottom part, the document in which this term appeared. And the question now is, so how do I calculate the impact of this information on the timeline or the econometric model that the client has given me? I go to the stock listing given to me by the client that I have here. I have the return of the share. I see how the share has shifted or moved from the previous day. We have to take into consideration the waves and the movements of the fluctuations of the stock market. We can also see seasonal fluctuations, because if we want to understand how sales can improve how can improve the sales of ice creams, it's clear that we sell more ice creams in the summer than in the winter. So these elements need to be either excluded or included. But once we have all this information on the fluctuations of a share, the machine will tell you an index that is an impact index, and it will tell you, okay, here I see that, for example, there is a positive impact, or here I see a negative impact, which should be reviewed, because every time there is a news, I see that the share fluctuates. And so I keep on waiting. The days go by, the news is there, specific news, we see some fluctuations. And if the news disappears, then the share doesn't move. It's more sophisticated than this, but in the end, the machine will tell me that there is a clear correlation between this news and the fluctuations of the sales of sweaters or hotel reservations or ice creams. I see this news published, and there is a movement, a shift in the shares. Very well. So once this index appears, if you go here, we can say, okay, let's try to understand what the topic that prompted this fluctuation was. And you go here, the topic, and this is a topic that made that on this specific day, the share fluctuated. And they called it net interest income. And if you go to the news, we try to interpret why this share went down. And here we see that Bank of China earned 3% more income. And this will have an economic logic. And here would be, the client is the person responsible for interpreting this news and understand why this affected or had an impact on Banco Santander. And they would understand, okay, this is why there was this fluctuation on my stock market, on my stock share, because they are my competitors or for any other reason. But here's the client, the one who would interpret the news. And this is a way that we have understood that would be more useful for clients and help clients again understand how the appearance of specific news will impact their business. But since I need models, for example, good governance models, where, for example, I understand how information normally affects my reputation, but others spoke more predictive models. If I'm capable of understanding that every time this topic appears in the massive news that I analyze, every time this topic comes up, if I'm capable of seeing how this has affected me, what I will predict is that the next time this topic appears, I will have not only a qualitative but a quantitative assessment. I will be able to say this has affected me in this percentage. So I could calculate how much it will affect me and apply strategic or tactical measures for that particular scenario. So every time this topic appears, we should launch countermeasures, or we change our commercial strategy, or we organize campaigns, or any other action. So people ask them from the point of view of sales analysis, or from the point of view of communication strategies for good corporate governance. Other people use this for money fluctuations, so the possibilities are endless. And that's about everything I have to say. I would prefer to listen to any question that anyone in the audience may have. And if there are no questions, I would like to thank you for your time and for being here. Hello. Well, thank you very much for the workshop. I've really enjoyed it. But I do have one question. When you gave the example with the platform, is what has a specific impact is a topic? Or, I mean, are we analyzing when where a news or an article appears, and I see on that timeline, I see that the appearance of that topic is the one that affects? Yes. In the impact, when we talk about impact that we are calculating here, well, right now you cannot see it, but in the timeline, when there are fluctuations, it doesn't move just because of one topic. In fact, we could have at a specific moment on that single day 3 or 4 relevant topics, and we would have to make the calculation based on the ones that affect us positively or negatively to see how they affected you in one way or the other. But the machine analyzes that topic in particular, how much it has affected. But the machine gives you the possibility of saying, hey, do you want to calculate it on an individual basis, the impact of each one of those topics, or would you like to understand how different topics can come out and impact you at a general level? So normally, you analyze one topic because you're interested in one topic, because these important fluctuations come from one topic. There are many topics that appear, could create some noise in your timeline and your fluctuations, but suddenly there's one that you see, okay, this affects my econometric model significantly. So the idea would be to focus on one topic, and indeed it will analyze the topic. The news itself, you have an article, can mention that topic together with other 2 or 3, because an article can cover many issues or many topics. But if it's a relevant topic, it will talk about the topic on a more interest or more in depth. And if we see that, for example, 87% of this article talk about topic X, we will see that the fluctuation and the topic coincide. Should we carry on? Okay. Next question. What I would like to know is how you can apply this to know the demand of, in my case, insurance, personal insurance schemes. How would you structure this so that, for example, we could specify the purchase expectations, because there's a lot of offer in this industry, and so there's not so much demand. So maybe a model like yours could be useful to identify the demand And then in reputational terms, how do you solve that? Okay, well, out of the blue, I could think to understand the generation of demand, we would need the timeline of the econometric model. That would be the sales of your insurance products. So based on that, we would need to carry out an analysis on information. We'd need to listen to the information and generate some campaigns that could somehow indirect. Because now when we do a TV campaign, immediately, the day after, we could see the sales that were performed, and you don't need such sophisticated models to understand the cost consequence. But what we could do is try to listen, not through very clear campaigns, but through messages. There are, influencers on social media, or I publish news. And it's interesting to see in the sales area of the company how the sales fluctuate based on these other initiatives or actions, so that you can understand that every time an action appears on a specialized media or in a general media or in a social network, if you see that there are more sales, then you would see that correlation. But perhaps it's not so related to specific campaigns, but in general media, you talk about a topic. For example, we talk about the last months. We've heard a lot electric cars, and every time the insurance companies say that every time they talk about electric cars, there is a great impact. And you're seeing that the following day or the following days, there are a lot of sales for car insurance. There are a lot of sales for car insurance schemes. So you see that electric cars have an effect, have an impact. We could talk about any other topic. For example, COVID now has pretty much contaminated or influenced everything. But if you see that there are any topics that could be interesting to listen to, but not because of a specific campaign, but because you want to know the state of mind of your potential buyers, and based on what is talked about on the social media and on the newspapers, you will see if there's an interest on calls for your call center. That could be the econometric model. How many calls to the call center do I have? Or how many sales do I complete? Or mail inquiries? Then you would see that correlation that you're seeking. So specific topic favors sales. And based on that, you would need to design a strategy where you see every time this topic is brought up in this specific media outlet, I'm having good results. Therefore, this is where I need to insist. I don't know if that answered the first part of your question. Now, going to reputation, you could be listening to social media, make a sentiment analysis of what's being said on social media. There are many companies that specialize in that. We do it through NLP, and as I've said, in different languages. You could do it at a global level as well. Listen to social media, because maybe that's there where reputation for an insurance company could have a higher impact. But if you think that there are other outlets where what they say is relevant, and it's interesting to hear, the insurance company would rank the topics that are related to the insurance company. You would provide the sentiment analysis, a ranking, a specific report on what's being talked about. And if the insurance company has the econometric model, we could work on that. Have I made myself clear? Thank you. Yes, a very, very interesting topic. I won't ask you how much you've earned in the stock market with that. How much could I earn in the stock market with that algorithm? But I would like to focus on advertising. And some of the topics that could be interesting, or words that could lead people to think about buying a product, that it's not the direct product, but that something that could be around that topic. In addition to saying where it could be more effective, your advertising strategy, would you be able to assess the effectiveness? For example, if you use a topic and you recommend an advertisement, an investment on advertising, could you also see the different results that this campaign could have? Of course. The idea would be as follows. The company, the manufacturer, identifies certain topics and wants to place advertising there because they know there's a match. Sometimes this match doesn't have to be specifically direct. I talked before about, hair treatments. Maybe I want to place shampoo. But now let's talk about energy drinks. If we talk about parachute jumping, maybe I'm interested in putting the energy drink there. Why? Because I know that the target audience that practice parachute, they like risk, and they are very much in line with my energy drink. So, how would we do this? We analyze all these places where there's relevant information, media outlets, radio, social media, etc. We have the topic that I've already identified with a previous analysis that's been done throughout the project, that every time this topic here, you need to place this banner. Once the banner is placed, the following day, we would need to see if this had an impact on sales. Of course, this is not as simple as just saying it, because someone could come and say, I'm Red Bull and I have amazing sales worldwide, and I don't see how the banner that I placed in a media outlet to this person could have increased my sales that are hundreds or millions of liters. Of course, this won't show a significant variation. So we need to work with the client to see how we can establish this cause and effect. Sometimes what we do in projects is provide the technology, we explain the concept, we listen, we understand, not by words, but based on ideas, and you give me something that can help us measure that correlation. We need the assistance of the client, the support of the client. And there are clients who could say, I'm not capable, or yes, place the banner, but then on that banner, let's put that if you click on the banner, you have a discount, or visit our website, or if you click on the banner, go to a promotion that I have on my website, and what you measure then is clicks. And then you have your timeline. But there are some people that tell us, okay, I'm capable of seeing that every time you place a banner, how many clicks there are. You can do that, but they cannot automate in seconds the interpretation of the information in the press and then automatically placing the banner. That's much more sophisticated. That's it, right? We don't have any time left. Thank you very, very much, Ramon, for this hands-on information. Sometimes people talk about AI, it's so abstract, but you've helped us understand clearly. Let's give him a round of applause. Thank you very much. And now we're going to have our break for lunch. I encourage you to enjoy the catering service. And for those of you at home, we'll meet again at 4. So charge your batteries. Bye-bye.